Well, thank you for coming for this presentation on the Prison Entrepreneurship Program. Basically, what I'll touch on is how I heard about the program, which was on the 4/17. Then I'll talk a bit about the prison reality, just some stats and just what it's like to be in prison, so you get an idea about it before we talk about solutions. Then I'll explain the PEP program, Prison Entrepreneurship, both the in-prison portion and then the re-entry services when people are released. I'll talk about results and the future of the program and my experience going there. I've been there 3 times in 3 months, which is still a shock for me. And for those who want to be involved, like there's just certain ways. And I'll finish with 2 short videos. One is a 4-minute video that gives you like snapshots of the founder in prison, like when we go there and so on, to give you a better sense. And the second one, if we have time, is a 2-minute testimony from one of the graduates that talks about what PEP has done for him. So before I go further and explain the beginnings of the program, I'll just give you a few stats about prison reality to give you a little idea. I put both the American and the Canadian stats because of our context. So 1 out of 100 Americans is in prison today. In Canada, we have 39,000 inmates total, both federal and provincial prisons. The U.S. has the highest rate of incarceration in the world, 754 inmates per 100,000 residents. In Canada, you'll see it's a lot lower at around 114 per 100,000 residents. You see the stats about like how much money is spent in the criminal justice system every year. In Canada, you'll notice that a lot more money is spent per inmate than in the States. And in the States, they have over-representation of black people, especially in the prisons, compared to their proportion in the general population. In Canada, you can see that Aboriginal people might be the equivalent in terms of over-representation. Then, in terms of what it's like to be in prison, I talked with some of the men who shared their story with me, and I just did a little bit of research on internet, and both what they said and what I found in the documents exactly coincide. So one of the big problems is gang violence in prison. In the States at least, I don't know what it is like in Canada, 75% of the inmates are in gangs, and the other 25% are the property of the gangs. And that's what they call those people. Property inmates basically do whatever the gang people tell you. So if they want you to go kill somebody, you go and do that, and it does happen in prison. If they want to have sex with you, you just go and you do it, because otherwise you know that you're going to be in trouble yourself. And this is what the guys were telling me, and I believe them for that. And then there is a lot of rape and health issues in prison, overcrowding and difficult conditions. That's more on the American side. The federal prisons in the States are 150% capacity, so basically they're overcrowded. Some of them don't even have a room. In Texas, it's really hot. I don't know if you've been there before, but in the summer, it gets to be easily 40 and plus degrees Celsius. And most of them don't have air conditioning. For us, it's a luxury, but there it can easily go to 60 degrees Celsius in the summer with all the metal and everything. So just that, one of the guys was telling me, was a great incentive not to come back to prison. Then I'll tell you a bit about Catherine Rohr, who's the founder of the program. So she was 26 years old 6 years ago in 2004. She's a New York businesswoman who was invited to go to visit a Texas prison. And when she went, she just saw that many of them were natural leaders or natural businessmen, because they are gang leaders and they're drug dealers, and therefore they had natural abilities, a lot of them. It's just they happened to use them for, well, illegitimate means. But she thought, what would happen if we actually channel those natural skills and energy into things that are positive and for good? It not only gives them a second chance and actually do something productive and constructive with their life and give them self-value, but it's actually extremely good for society in channeling this energy that they have and those natural skills. One thing that she wanted to focus on, and that is still a big emphasis of the program, is that she only invests with people that are truly committed to personal change. No time to lose with people that want to stay the way they are. There's a lot of them, but so that's why there's a big screening process to make sure that those that get selected are truly the ones that have already committed to changing their lives at a personal level. So I'll read you the official mission statement of the program, which is to stimulate positive life transformation for executives and inmates, uniting them through entrepreneurial passion, education, and mentoring. And you'll see that the emphasis is both ways. It's not only us giving to them, but I can tell you that I receive as much interacting with them as they do. Because it makes you think about your own life and your values and different things that you have to wrestle with and being in contact with them. And the guys that are in the program have so much energy and desire to grow and change that it's really encouraging, and it makes me reflect on my own life. So it's a not-for-profit organization which is privately funded, and they want to stay like this. It's a non-religious organization. It's not incorporated as a religious organization, though the founder and most of the staff are Christians, and therefore the basis of it is our Christian values. People get selected no matter what their faith affiliation is or whether they have a faith or not. There are Muslims and all kind different faith or non-faith people in the program. After that, I guess I'll just move on to the team. So right now, the CEO is Bert Smith, the man that you see at the upper corner there. They have a governing board and 3 advisory boards, 21 staff. Half of them are PEP graduates. So they really, truly believe in what they say when they say that they're some of the best talent in town. They actually hire them to run the organization. And I can tell you, for having interacted with many of them, that they truly, it's not just a job, like they really own it, they believe in the potential of it, so it really gives a strength to the organization. So they have business instructors, life skills instructor, a spiritual advisor for those who want, family liaison, post-release coordinators, and then you have a variety of volunteers that come in for different functions, like executive people, like businessmen or businesswomen, and you have business plan advisors. So they're basically MBA students from Harvard and 40 other universities that actually review the business plan that the inmates create. I'll talk about that a bit later. Then you have other volunteers, different kinds of partners, and you have the PP graduates that are still in prison that help out the subsequent classes, for grading their homeworks and making sure that rules are abided by and all kinds of things like that. So that gives you a general idea of who's involved. Then something that's very important to PEP are the 10 driving values that you see listed there. And at the end of the 5-month program in prison, they actually vote amongst themselves for the person, the inmate, that represents the most all of those values. So he's called Mr. PP and gets recognized at the graduation for that. So now I'll talk about the main components of the program. So there's an in-prison component, which is a 5-month program, both business skills and life skills. And then there's the outside prison component, which is made of reintegration services to help them facilitate their transition into the free world, as they call it. And then there's a business development side for those who want to start their small business, which is optional, but they have some help in that respect. So before going to the business and life skills component, I just wanted to talk about the selection process. So there's three things that are looked for potential candidates. First of all, and most of all, commitment to personal transformation. They need to show that they've already made a commitment to change even before entering the program, so that they got gang removed, that they don't have disciplinary cases in prison for X number of months already, and different things like that, because otherwise they don't want to equip criminals to be better criminals. They want to equip people that really want to make a change in their lives. Then the second one is work ethics, and then they look also for entrepreneurial ability. So the procedure is that there's more than 62 Texas prisons. They actually have 150,000 inmates in Texas for a population of 25 million. So out of the eligible 62 Texas prisons, the state pulls out a list of the eligible men. So the ones that qualify are about 8,000 of them. The basic criteria are that they're within 3 years of release, because obviously their motivation is a lot stronger to do something if they're closer to their release than if they have 15 years to serve left. No sexual offenses, but any other offense they're not filtered out because of other offenses, including murder and all other serious offenses. They need a minimum of a high school diploma or an equivalent of that, and as I said, a demonstrated commitment to personal change. And they have an information session in each prison. So there's a PP recruiter that actually visits 2 prisons per day in all of the state to inform inmates of the possibility for them to apply. They have to fill, if they want to, a 10-page application package, which is very detailed, and they go through their personal history and their commitment to change and the whole shebang. So about 2,500 apply. Then they get a first interview by the PP recruiter that just roughly tells them if they will probably be eligible or not. If they pass the first interview, they get transferred to the Cleveland unit. Units are prisons. It's 1 hour away from Houston. That's where the program is held. Then they get a second interview by the PP graduates. So you're talking about the inmates that are screening the other inmates because they really know, how to discern them and who's genuine and who's not. So that's another way of filtering. And one of them was telling me, you can see in their eyes, And then the third interview is with the PP staff. So at that point, there's about 100 of them, more or less, depending on the class, that start the program. By the time they graduate, some get separated, some get released from prison, and so on. So they graduate about 50 to 60 of them. So you see that really the ones that are in the program, are dedicated. For the demographics, it's 18 to 65 years old, with about 70% of them in their 20s and 30s, so pretty young. You have 35% white people, 30% of African American, and 35 Hispanic, more or less. Then an average of 5 years of time served. I met one that had served up to 34 years. And half of them have been in prison twice already. 55% are violent offenses, and most of them, 80%, are drug-related. And most of them were raised in poverty and will be in poverty for at least some time when they get released.